To free yourself from overthinking, you don't actually need to be suppressing your thoughts, and you don't actually also need to be filling your mind with just positive thoughts, as many people tell you. What you really need is to understand the deep underlying reasons behind your negative and your overthinking thoughts and just eliminate those problems, and also find a way to not let them influence your actions during the day. Now, I personally went from being a big overthinker, bro. I used to literally overthink about my shirts that I was putting on, about the fact that people might think bad of what I was eating, and all those little bullshit things during the day. And when I actually realized three main things, I actually could free myself more and more and more from my overthinking and all of my limiting beliefs. So in this video, I'm going to share with you those three main realizations that got me to free my mind from negative and overthinking thoughts. Now, the first thing I realized that really changed my life about overthinking was that every single thought that I have has a reason to exist, and that understanding the underlying reason and solving the underlying problem is the way to solve my overthinking. Because I used to just do what many people do and what many people suggest you to do, which is to, suppress those thoughts. When you start having negative thoughts or start overthinking about something, just telling myself, no, I shouldn't have these thoughts. I don't want to have these thoughts. Get out of my mind. And so I was trying to fill my mind with positive thoughts, trying to suppress the negative ones. But that is actually creating more harm than it is actually helping. Because when you suppress your thoughts, they're actually not leaving your mind. They're just getting deeper and deeper into it in a part where it's harder for you to understand them. And so with time, if you suppress your thoughts more and more, and I unfortunately or fortunately know exactly what I mean with that, you will start doing things and feeling uneasy and not really know why. And that is because you have basically put your thoughts under the carpet, right? You haven't solved them, you haven't addressed them, you've tried to suppress them. And by doing so, they just went deeper and deeper in your mind so that you couldn't see them, but they still have the negative effect on your life. So what's the solution? What's the solution to the problem? Well, it's to understand the problem. And so, as I said, every thought you have has a reason to exist. And when you understand that reason and solve that problem, that's when you are going to see that your thoughts are going to vanish. Because we have to realize that every single thought, action, and feeling we have, and this is a big realization I made some time ago while reading a very powerful book, The Mountain Is You, is that all my thoughts were trying to steal a need that I was not addressing and stealing myself. So we all have human needs, sleep, food, water, but we also have other more, spiritual, mental needs. So for example, the need to feel at peace with yourself, the need to feel loved, the need for many other things. And so what we need to understand is that those thoughts that we often don't really like, don't understand why they are trying to kind of like push us away like from our ideal life, that seem to be trying to sabotage us, they are actually trying to steal a need that we're not stealing in a healthier way. And so the key is understanding what kind of deep need these thoughts are trying to steal, and then basically address that problem and take action on it. And so how do you understand what kind of need or what kind of deep desire those thoughts are trying to steal? Well, personally, I've seen that journaling about them was crucial. Now, there is a reason why I finished this journal. As you can see, it's full, and it was the journal for this year, and I finished it a few months ago. Literally, that is how much I write, because I'm literally doing a lot of journaling every day. And I've seen that it is a very powerful tool to free my mind from those thoughts. So what I do is I use the why journaling method, as I like to call it. Very simple, actually. Maybe during the day, I have an overthinking thought or a set of thoughts that I see coming up over and over again. Maybe, me overthinking about my physical looks, or maybe me overthinking about what people might think about my hair, or maybe me overthinking about whether I should go and talk to those people or not. So when I identify those thoughts and those feelings, I start asking myself, why did they come up? Why did I start having those thoughts, right? Then I respond to that question and I ask myself, okay, why is that the case? Because of that. And why is that? Because of that. And why is that? Because of that, and because of that, and because of that. And so I basically get down and really get to understand the root cause. Once I understood why that thoughts, those overthinking thoughts existed, what they were actually trying to achieve, that's when I can actually take action on it and realize, okay, those thoughts about, for example, my shirt maybe not looking good were actually trying to steal my need to feel at peace with myself. And so why wasn't I feeling at peace with myself? Well, because I was not doing what I wanted to be doing. And so the solution is actually not trying to change my shirt, but it is becoming more like the person I want to be, act more in line with who I feel like I want to be. And once I start doing that, I don't care about my shirt anymore. So I know this may sound strange because maybe you're not, accustomed to think in this way of like thoughts trying to basically steal a deep need. But once you really understand this, and once you actually see this on yourself, and you really use this why journaling method and get down to the deep root and solve it, bro, you are going to see that those thoughts will leave your mind and they won't come back because you haven't basically tried to suppress them. You haven't pushed them away in your mind. You have literally taken away the reason for them to exist. So they don't have a reason to exist anymore. You saw that problem, the real problem. And so they won't come up anymore. That's the key. And what I highly recommend you doing is very simply writing them down during the day. So maybe during the day, you don't have the time to do your journaling session when you start having those thoughts. So what I used to do was writing them down on my phone, maybe, or on a piece of paper. And then in the evening, you revise them. Now we get to the second realization, which is that I am not my thoughts. Now, by using the first method, the why journaling method, you're going to free your mind more and more and more from those thoughts. They will literally have no more a reason to exist in your mind. But before you have done that, you're still going to have some thoughts here and there, some limiting beliefs, some overthinking thoughts that are going to try to push you in doing specific things. Now, a realization that has helped me out a lot to still act in a way that I wanted to act, even though I had those fearful, limiting, beliefs and thoughts, was realizing that I was not those thoughts. Now, we now know that those thoughts exist because of a specific reason. And the most important thing you can do to solve them is understand that reason and solve the problem. But those thoughts are not you. They're just a sign to tell you that you're not really doing everything correctly, that you're not stealing your needs in a healthy way. And so you are not your thoughts. They're just in your mind as a kind of like a sign. They're trying to do something. They are trying to accomplish something, but they are not you. And so when I realized that I could actually have those limiting beliefs and still act in another way, that's when I realized that, I was not my thoughts anymore. When I was there and I was overthinking about whether I should talk to that person or not, maybe I look bad, maybe people might think I'm needy because I go and talk to a stranger out of nowhere, maybe what will he or she think, right? Once I realized, okay, those thoughts are not me, I detached from them. I realized, okay, they're trying to accomplish something. Maybe I have a fear somewhere deep down inside of me or something that is making those thoughts come up. But I'm not those thoughts. That's when I could actually go and still talk to that person without needing to listen to my thoughts. So remember, those thoughts arise because they have a reason inside of you to arise. They want to accomplish something, as I said, but you don't actually need to listen to them. So just do what you wanted to do anyways. You have to build this habit of identifying those limiting beliefs or that overthinking coming up and then detaching from it, realizing you're not those thoughts, and then just doing what you wanted to be doing anyways. And now there is a third realization that helped me out to understand what I should be doing when I have those overthinking thoughts, right? Because sometimes we are there and we really feel like we don't really know what to do, right? We start having those limiting beliefs and those thoughts and we start overthinking about something. And I used to really struggle to understand, okay, should I now do it or is it a better idea to not do it, right? Or should I talk to that person or is it better to not talk to that person? Like, how do you actually know? And here is the third realization that always gives you the answer. Do the opposite of what you're trying to convince yourself of doing. Now, that comes deeply from the realization number 2, which is that you're not your thoughts. And when I realized that the only reason why I was trying to convince myself of something was because I really didn't want to do it, that's when I realized that I should always do what I'm trying to convince myself of doing. Now bear with me because this may sound a little bit strange at the beginning, but once you really understand it, you will be like crazy. Like this is such a powerful tool and you will see that you can literally always take the right decision when you you know what you're trying to convince yourself of doing, and you simply do the opposite. So you're not your thoughts, as said, and you're going to have thoughts, right? You're going to have maybe overthinking thoughts about whether you should talk to that person or not. And so your mind is trying to tell you, no, you shouldn't, because, that person might think bad of you, you're alone, maybe doesn't want to speak to you, maybe, it's strange to just go in there and talk to that person. And now, if you were totally convinced that not talking to that person was the better idea, then you wouldn't need to convince yourself of doing it. You would simply not talk to that person, right? You don't need to convince yourself of not jumping down from a bridge, right? You don't need to convince yourself of eating when you're hungry. You just do it because you know it's the right thing to do. And the same thing goes for things that you don't really want to do. Your mind is trying to convince you of doing what you don't really want to do. Let's say that you know deep down, because we always deep down know what we want to do. Our gut feeling, our instinct, our heart, call it as you want it, is always telling you exactly what you want to do, what you deep down feel is right. And let's say that you knew you wanted to go to the gym. It's the right thing to do, but maybe you're not feeling so well today, you didn't eat so much, you didn't sleep so well, and so your mind is trying to convince you of not going to the gym, right? If you were already at peace and convinced that you shouldn't go to the gym, then you wouldn't feel the need to convince yourself. And the only reason why your mind is trying to tell you to not go to the gym, and it has to convince you, it has to try to convince you, is because you deep down know that you should actually go. Right? When you actually are doing the right thing, you don't need to convince yourself of doing the right thing. You don't feel the need to tell yourself why you should go to the gym. You just know it's the right thing and you know you have to do it. So realize this, and this was probably one of the biggest realizations I had, to be doing the right things even though I had overthinking thoughts, was always do the opposite of what your mind is trying to convince you of doing, because it is not what you want to be doing. If you were already convinced of that thing, you wouldn't feel the need to convince yourself. You're already convinced. That's why you should do it. So it's actually very simple. To stop overthinking and to basically not let overthinking thoughts control your life, there are three main things I highly recommend you doing. When you're going to have those overthinking thoughts, because they are going to come up, right? Even though you're going to have less and less and less if you follow the steps I've told you. Well, first of all, you detach from it. You realize you're not your thoughts. I'm not this negative thoughts. Second thing I highly recommend you doing is noting them down, so that later on, maybe in the evening, in the afternoon, when you have more time, you can journal about them and solve the real problem. And third thing you do is do the opposite of what your mind is telling you to do, of what you're trying to convince yourself of doing, because that is the thing, as we've said, that you know you actually shouldn't do. That's why you're coming up with all those good sounding reasons. But deep down, you know it's not the right thing. Otherwise, you wouldn't feel the need to convince yourself. So those are the three steps that I follow. And by really detaching from my thoughts and realizing, okay, I have these thoughts, but I can do whatever I want, that's really crucial. Now, I really hope this video helped you out, and I'm sure you will free your mind so much from negative overthinking thoughts and limiting beliefs if you follow these steps. And most importantly, even when they will come up, they will not rule your life. If you have any further questions, any struggles, or you want my personal help with anything, bro, you can get it for free. Just go and check out the link in the description down below. Anyways, thank you a lot for your time and your attention. I really hope this video helped you out. And to be really honest, it only will if you actually start doing these three things. I wish you all the best, bro. Thank you again for your time and your attention. Wish you an amazing day. Hopefully see you very soon. Ciao.